Isabelle Papoulias, thank you for being here. To kick things off, I want to play Two Truths and a Lie. Have you ever played that game?
That's a very American game. Probably
Okay.
once a long time ago.
All right, well, let's see.
All right.
Let's see how you do here. Okay, so
Yeah.
the first thing is, Isabelle is the SVP of Global Marketing for one of the most trusted network automation companies. She is fluent in 4 languages, or she's an avid salsa dancer. Which one is the lie?
So,
D?
yeah,
They're all
choice
true?
D.
They're all true.
Yes.
They're all true. Okay, sweet. I kind of set you up for that. First of all, salsa, if I come across you on the salsa dance floor and you're a global marketing leader, are you a lead or a follow?
Interesting. Well, for salsa dance, I'm a follow, but for
Okay.
other dances, I can also lead.
Oh, okay. All right. I was just not sure if, like, again,
You
if
didn't
our
ask me
paths
about my
crossed.
other dances, but yeah,
Oh,
with
what are
salsa, I
your-
follow.
What are your other dances?
Well, how much time do we have on this podcast?
Not that much time. Maybe it depends on how many
The
you
most
have.
recent one is I've been teaching kizomba, which is a dance from Central West Africa, from Angola.
Okay. Holy
I've been
cow.
teaching for a very long time now, and that's like tango, basically. It's like a walking dance, similar to tango. It's not tango.
Okay.
I live it there. And for that, since I teach, I lead and I follow. Because I have to do
Okay.
both to be able to
Yeah.
teach people.
Absolutely. You have to do it backwards and forwards if you're teaching. But you also speak a few languages.
Yeah.
4? Did I get it right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right.
So English,
I try to speak English, yeah.
Flemish. What are the other 3?
Greek, French,
Okay.
and Spanish. So
Greek, French, and Spanish.
But look, I had an advantage growing up because my mother is French, my father is Greek. I was born and raised in Greece, in a French educational system, long story. So, I was born in a bilingual household, so that's like you check the box
Yeah.
of 2 languages right there,
You have
right?
to
So
do
that's
it.
easy. And then in the French school system, you have to learn at least 2 foreign languages.
Okay.
So English, you get an option at a certain level, and then it's usually between English. English is mandatory, right? So we all get English. And then the second foreign language, you have to choose between Spanish and German. And I took Spanish, and frankly, the only reason I took Spanish is because I thought it'd be easier for me because I already spoke French.
Yeah.
So Latin languages. Whereas German is very different. But in hindsight, it was the right decision. Sorry to the German speakers out there, because more people in the world speak Spanish.
Right.
Yeah.
right.
And so I've
That
used
makes sense.
Spanish a lot for business, actually.
Okay.
It came
Comes in
ended
handy.
up being very handy, yeah.
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 Well, you said Latin, so Pig Latin is the only other Latin language that I speak. But I actually minored in Spanish in college, but I didn't really
Okay.
I didn't
Do you
like
remember
put it to
anything?
use. I mean, más o menos.
Oh, okay. Muy bien.
I understood that. Yo
I
comprendo.
speak Latin. The only actual Latin I remember from Latin class, because we had to take Latin class for 1 semester, was Rosa, Rosam, Rosae. I don't even remember what it means. So that's the only thing I remember from that class.
We got to figure out what that means. Anybody on the
Someone
Google
Google,
machine, look that up. So you lead global marketing for Backbox.
Yes.
So what is Backbox? And pretend that I'm 10 years old.
Yeah, so Backbox is a network automation platform. In basic language, what we do is we work with network teams, network engineers that manage the network every day, and all the devices on network like firewalls and routers and switches and all the stuff that, those of us who are not technical people take for granted.
Thank you, technical people.
yeah,
by the way.
and so
You wanna
they-
shout out to the technical people.
Exactly. Network engineers, let me tell you, they're superheroes. They work
Yeah.
really hard. And we automate a lot of the tasks that they do day in and day out, right?
Right.
To keep the performance of the network and the security of network happening. A lot of the work they do is surprisingly manual and extremely time consuming. And by using Backbox, they're able to do the work, a lot faster and remove the manual, the human error, which then
Yeah.
enhances the security.
Is your background in like a technical space, or have you adapted to this?
So
somehow?
it's not, and I love that question. It's not. I come from sales tech, MarTech
Okay.
in my previous life in startups. So this is my first time in a very, very technical space. I'm used to selling to sales leaders, marketing leaders, and now we're selling to, within the IT infrastructure team and the network teams more specifically. They're very, very technical buyers. They're extremely sharp. They know what they want and what they don't want. they don't really like marketing. They don't want to be. They don't really like being marketed to. So it's kind of like, oh, hello, I guess you don't like me, but I have to talk to you.
This sounds like the worst job for you.
It's it's not the worst job. I'm really excited about the challenge.
Yeah.
And being in this new industry, it's a great experience for me. But it's definitely a challenge in that it's a different ballgame.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. And it's not just that, but also the channel ecosystem is pretty complex. Most companies don't buy direct when it comes to IT infrastructure. They buy through resellers. So as a marketing leader, you're in a very complex industry like that. You are very reliant on product marketing. And having the right product marketing team is super important because they're really the connecting tissue between the product team, the marketing team, and the buyer ultimately.
Yeah.
So,
your career path, your trajectory has been anything but linear. So this is a new role, but it sounds like maybe you've had other roles. So what has it been? Like an S or a zigzag or? Unpack that for me. What does it look like?
Yeah, I never thought about it in terms of shape, but I like the question. I'm going to go home and draw it on paper and see what it comes out.
Okay. Appreciate that. Send us that picture. We'll post it.
I don't know if it's an S or zigzag, but I know that it was deliberate from the very beginning.
Okay.
So I started in advertising, eventually made it into the startup world. And I remember specifically from the beginning saying, I want to be a generalist. I don't want to put myself in a corner and specialize in one area. And that's why I moved from research to creative, and then from creative to media and different industries. I mean, I started in B2C, but quickly moved to B2B. A lot of financial clients, technology clients. And within those roles, I was always trying to grab, so I was in global account management, running big brands like MasterCard, Johnson & Johnson, ExxonMobil, only to name a few. But within those roles and my day-to-day of, I'm managing the client or the account, I was always looking to kind of grab is probably the wrong term, it wasn't violent, but I was always looking for other...
Gently caress,
yeah. And
something.
Pull towards me. Looking for opportunities, right, across the organization where I saw other gaps, right? So I partnered very closely with HR, on like mentoring programs, but I slowly started to get into sales enablement and building a sales enablement function. Started to build the biz dev function and the SDRs, started to build the RevOps team. And it's all about, then I moved from marketing into operations, corporate strategy, global expansion, always thinking, like what else can I learn that is going to allow me to really understand how the entire business is run, not just marketing.
Right. And why is that?
I think it's one is in my personality and my nature, because the same is true in my personal life. It's almost like I learn one thing and then I'm like, okay, what's next? Yeah. So dance is a perfect example of that. So I've danced all my life. I started dancing at 7 and then got into different kinds of dances, and that continues today. And ultimately, look, my aspiration is to be a go-to-market leader. If I may say this on this podcast, I think it's okay. I mean, I'd like to be a strong number 2 to a CEO someday.
Yeah.
I don't see myself just as a marketing leader.
And
who knows? Maybe even run a company someday. I don't know.
Maybe you'll be the CEO.
I think the CEO role is super intense. It's for like.
Is the number 2 the COO?
The COO, yeah. But some of it is frankly like, it's my own curiosity. I mean, I think that's just how I am as a person.
Yeah. This is a global function.
Yeah.
And the word global and the word worldwide, you find those frequently in your dossier of roles and your job titles. What are some of the nuances? I mean, kind of going back to the marketing side a little bit, what are some of the nuances between like a global CMO maybe and like a North American CMO, or somebody who has sort of more of a regional oversight?
Yeah, I mean, I've done, global in very large companies with very large teams that, span like 150 markets. Mm-hmm. And I've done global very, very small.
Right.
I would say, when you have a very large team and a lot of markets, in some ways there's a, I would say call it like a herding the cats, part of the job. And I don't mean that in a tactical way. I mean it more in the sense of you want everyone to be marching to the same drumbeat, right? So there's a global strategy that needs to be adapted locally because it needs to make sense locally and needs to be executed locally. But ultimately, you want all the markets to be again, doing work that ladders up to the global strategy.
Right. Francis Ford Coppola always said, to make a great movie, you have to get everybody to make the same movie.
Oh, really? I haven't heard that. Actually, I
So
love
it's
that.
another-
I would say some parts of the world are more likely to follow along than others. Some
Right.
are going to be more
Is that
resistant
cul-
culturally,
is that
or
cultural?
because
Okay.
some of it cultural, some of it I think because some regions, some markets are much bigger and they and more developed, more sophisticated in
Sure.
how they do things. So there's that kind of herding the cats and getting everyone to march to the same tune.
Sure. Yeah.
And then the cultural nuances that come from that, because if you're working with many different markets and regions, then not everyone does business the same way too. As some part of the world that are more like the U.S. that are more like efficient, very efficient minded and effectiveness minded. And some parts of the world it's more
Productivity.
relational and things are going to take longer. I need to get to know you and we need to break bread, and that's part of the how to be effective.
Right.
I mean, I'll give you a perfect example of that, and it's actually not in the business world. When I'm in France and when I'm in Greece versus here, there's some things I have to do differently, and I have to remind myself to do them differently because I've been in the States for 3 decades now.
Yeah.
So I'm really a blend of 3 different cultures, including American culture. And so when I'm in Paris, this is not just for me, but generally speaking, you're in Paris, you walk into a bakery, you walk into a pharmacy. The first thing you have to do is say hello. Bonjour madame, bonjour monsieur. And you have to mean it. You have to look at them in the eye, they're going to look at you in the eye, and in fact, it's probably going to come from them first because you're walking to the store. And you have to smile and mean it, and
Right.
then be like, okay, how can I help you? And then you kind of like, okay, I'm here to buy this medication, whatever the thing is.
I have this thing on my foot that I need looked at.
Yeah, so
It's really weird.
if you don't do that, you won't get the same level. I guarantee you will not get the same level of service, right?
Interesting.
I know that when I'm
Is it considered rude?
it's
if you don't?
we consider
Okay.
rude, right? Now, and look, I'm a New Yorker, right? We
Yeah.
walk fast on the street. I still walk fast on the street,
Right.
right? And I know I do it here. Like I walk into the store, I barely say hello. I barely make eye contact with you, and I'm like, I might say hi, but it's like a very quick hi, like,
Yeah.
hi, okay, I'd like the whatever.
Right.
And
Let's
nobody-
get down
and
to
it's-
business here.
get
Let's
down to
not-
business,
We're
and
not
people-
building a relationship here. I got my thing. You got
And
your thing.
people respond the same way, and there's probably a line of people behind me. They also want to get rid of me as quickly
Yeah.
as possible, right? You go to Greece, and it's it's not uncommon to again. I'll use I don't know. Let's pick another. Let's just stick with the pharmacy example.
Yeah.
It's fine. You may get to the pharmacy, and the pharmacist behind the counter is actually on the cell phone talking to a family member.
Right.
You're gonna wait until they finish their conversation.
Before you get served. So it's like customer's not always right. It's
These are personal examples like of everyday life, but the same translates in business and
Sure,
how you do
yeah.
business, right?
Yeah.
And how you have a conversation, I think, with someone in Mexico City
Yeah.
at your local agency there versus how you have it with your peers in New York.
yeah, and that informs your role as how you build relationships or how you spend time with different people in different ways around the world.
Yeah.
Within the business.
Yeah.
This role and maybe other even previous roles in like a global aspect sounds like that your understanding of how different just culture works in different places has informed how you approach working with those people in those different places.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't know. That sounds maybe light or not necessarily like deep strategy or anything, but it really I believe it matters so much.
Yeah. Well, if it comes down to like getting stuff done,
Yeah.
you're not doing it all. You're delegating or you're working with in partnership with other people to get stuff done. Stuff doesn't get done if everybody's not making the same movie, right?
Yeah.
So that completely makes sense. I mean I think business is relationships, right?
Yeah, I mean, people like to work with people they like, right?
Yeah.
And so it's that.
So it's got to speed things up, I would imagine, though, versus having to learn.
I think it
a
does.
whole
I
cultural
believe it
thing.
really, really does.
Yeah. This isn't your first, global role. You've built functions like this in past companies. Where do you even start? Like, what do you do to start that process, knowing that like this is like an elephant that you have to eat? I wouldn't even know what that process
Yeah.
looks like. What like your mile markers are.
Yeah,
along
yeah.
the
That's a
journey.
great question. I made some mistakes there, by the way.
So maybe
yeah.
what are some of those
And you learn
mistakes
from
so
the
that
mistakes.
we can not do
Well,
those
I'll
again?
tell you one of the biggest mistakes I made, and I say that there were extenuating circumstances, and it wasn't only my decision, and there were resources and budgets involved, right? But like my last role, my previous company, we waited very late to hire a product marketer. I want to say it was the last hire that we made. And I mean, now I look back and I'm like, what the heck were we thinking? That needs to be the first hire you make.
Right.
I mean,
And this is somebody who is focused on that product and knows the ins and outs of the product.
Yeah, and again, the connection between product and marketing.
Right.
And it's the person that keeps their finger on the pulse of the market and what customers are looking for, what prospects are looking for, what analysts are saying, what the market is looking for essentially.
Yeah.
It's the person that understands the product and helps to develop content and messaging to translate it to,
Right.
our audience.
So is it about starting, I guess, identifying those needs, identifying those missing pieces? What are some other juicy mistakes that you made? That's
oh my
fun.
God.
That's fun
I'll
to
tell
talk
you.
about.
Yeah, I'll tell you a good one. So my last company, we made 8 acquisitions in I think it was less than 4 years or close to 3 years.
Okay, that seems like a lot.
Yeah, that was an incredible experience. I would say painful. I mean, it's very intense because acquisitions are very disruptive.
Yeah.
But boy, do you learn a lot. And so that was a great experience. And maybe I'm a masochist, I don't know, but I love acquisitions.
I love a good challenge.
Yeah, I love a good challenge. And but I think it was the first acquisition we made in hindsight. So it's actually funny, right? And I remember we were about to make the acquisition, and it was the first time I was going through an acquisition and the entire executive team. And so we got some advice from our board, and I still remember to this day one of the marketing advisor on the board said to me, "You need to move as slowly as possible." He said to me, "I know that it sounds counterintuitive. You're going to get a lot of pressure internally to do things very quickly, merge the websites, merge the content, get rid of the brand of the company you're acquiring, get rid of their tech stack, upgrade their content, all those things." But he said the reality is the day that you announce the acquisition is only the beginning. It takes time to merge two companies together on multiple levels, messaging, brand, technology, operations, all that. And you still have to do everything else, everything else you were doing before the acquisition still needs to happen. So the reality is the merging will happen over time. Don't rush through it.
Interesting.
And of course, what did we do? We rushed through it.
Yeah.
3 months.
Why not?
We had essentially an operational plan that had the tech stack and the websites and the content and the demand gen, all those things. And 3 months into it, we had, basically done everything, including shut down their website and so on. And we were very proud of ourselves because we were like, yeah,
Get it done.
We're amazing,
Hey.
we're so fast. And then what turned out to happen is we had underestimated the fact that the company we are acquiring, even though they were much smaller than us, and they were very niche.
Uh-huh.
They were very niche, but they were a leader in their niche.
Yeah.
And they were very well known.
They were like,
They
all of a
had
sudden
great
they
brand
didn't
equity,
exist anymore.
And all of a sudden
And
it
you
didn't
wiped
exist
them off
anymore.
of the face of the earth.
Exactly.
Oh,
Which
dang.
translated in,
We're like, put it back together, quick,
exactly,
plug it in.
a gap in demand gen and all those things. People were looking for that company, couldn't find it.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so I should have listened. The moral of the story is
Okay.
listen to your advisors, people.
Listen to your advisors, that's all.
'cause
That's all we're saying.
They've done it way more times than you have.
Yeah.
But look, it is also, the reality of the head of marketing every day is that we get internal pressures, right?
Right.
Everybody has an opinion about marketing because it's very visible.
Yep.
It's content, it's website, people see what you're doing and everybody has an opinion. And yeah, you do get pressure to we just acquire them, let's merge, let's this, let's that, why is their website still live? It shouldn't be. So a big part of the job of the
So
head of...
did you slow down after that, to the next? Because you did 7 more.
Yes.
Somehow.
Yes. So the future
So we did it in
acquisitions...
4 months instead of 3 months.
Future acquisitions, we slowed it down. But
Okay,
this
good.
still stands out to me today as
For sure.
wow, okay, you thought you were doing a great job and you kind of blew it somewhat. And so, I think part of the job of the CMO, head of marketing is, you have to educate the other stakeholders within the organization about marketing and the right way to do things, even though sometimes it feels counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
So, that was an interesting one. I'm sure there's plenty of other mistakes, but this definitely is one that stands out.
The one that stands out, yeah. Well, it stuck
Yeah.
with you. But hopefully, it's informed future things. I appreciate sharing that because I don't think that there's a lot of people that I don't think that just would talk openly.
And
about
it's
the
still
things.
and you know what? It's still counterintuitive. I've sat on I've been to conferences and I've talked to, and I've been on marketing webinars where they say like, oh, you acquire a brand, like make sure you accelerate the merging,
right.
But that's not the advice I got, and that doesn't resonate with the experience I had doing it.
So obviously the mistakes turn into learning opportunities, right?
Yeah.
So that was actually going to be my next question. It was just whether it's building a global marketing function or just your career along the way to kind of get to where you are now. What are 2 things that you learned that sort of really stuck with you along the way, whether it's early on or recently? It doesn't have to be a mistake. We can move away from that if you.
Yeah, as it relates to marketing specifically, or just in general?
I think just in your career, like you're a marketing, but you're in a leadership position. You've been in multiple different types of leadership positions.
Yeah.
And I'm always interested in those sort of little lessons that sort of stick out along the way.
Yeah.
If anything comes to mind.
As it relates to marketing, I'd say, best practices are there for a reason, and you should learn from best practices, but they may not be right for you.
Okay. So if you know the rules, you can break them.
If you know the rules, you can break them, but also you need to figure out the rules that are right for your organization.
Right.
And so for me, it's you test and learn. Don't assume that what you've done in the past that has worked well somewhere else is going to work for this new gig.
Sure.
And so test and learn multiple tactics, and then eliminate what doesn't work and do more of what does. So don't walk in with assumptions. You're going to walk in with experience, and you should take into account the experience and what you've done in other places, but with the mindset of, oh, let me see if it's going to work here, not necessarily that it's going to work here. So you have to benchmark against yourself,
right,
against the new opportunity.
You know what they say about assumptions, right?
No.
Does anybody know what they say?
I think I know where this is going.
We know.
You do?
Something about,
Something about asses.
Are you allowed to say this on this podcast?
I think you could say ass.
Okay, cool then.
They make an ass out of you and me,
It makes an ass out
right?
of you and me, right?
Yeah.
I
think we said the SHIT word one time.
I was trying to be polite and not go there. But
yeah. Is that impolite, do you think, to cuss on? I mean, ass isn't really that.
Fuck no, it's not.
Yes! That was our first F word. I can't even say it out loud. I'm gonna try to say it. I can't. No. Fuck. I whispered it.
And then the second thing I would say is never stop learning. And I know it's a cliche, but my God, never stop learning. This goes back to how I built my career, right? That I was always like, the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And I'm the same in my personal life, like I said. But especially today, especially in marketing, with all the technology, I mean, come on. Everybody, has anyone have heard of generative AI?
I've heard
just
of it.
to throw like one example out there. But no, I mean, everything is changing like by the hour. So it's sort of like you stop learning for like, I don't know how long, like a few months, and you're like left behind.
You're totally screwed. I just took a break. I just went on vacation.
And it's not just the marketing craft per se, but again, as a leader, learning about how to lead, learning about other functions of the organization, reading, listening to podcasts, going to conferences. I value that a lot. Mm-hmm. Knowing, I call it like the art of the possible, right? Like knowing what amazing looks like and what other folks are doing. That may not apply to you necessarily because, you're not, your budgets are much smaller or you're not at this level of maturity as an organization. But the inspiration alone of knowing what's possible energizes me, inspires me, allows me to test things, and just keeps me interested, So I would say never stop learning.
Going back to the career and what shape your career was, I came up with, well, it's not a shape, it's just an analogy, a buffet. Because I feel like you've just
I like that.
had a buffet of experiences.
That's a great word, I really like that. I'll use it.
But I'm really bad at, one of the things I've learned is I'm really bad at buffets. If you ever go to especially if you go to one of those ice cream places where it's paid by the pound. Have you ever been
no.
I get a little bit of vanilla and a little bit of chocolate, and you get a little bit of this and you get a little bit of that, and I get some sprinkles and I get the coconut stuff and then I get the things, and then by the end of it, I place it down on the scale.
And it's a triple ice cream sundae.
Yeah, and it's like $35, because I have 4 pounds of ice cream, and that's how I am with buffets. So I'm not very good at curating, but I like that you're, like you said, it was intentional.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty good at.
So you're probably pretty good at buffets.
I think I'm pretty good at curating. I don't know about the ice cream curating. I wouldn't be good at curating that. I think I would end up with $35.
Yeah,
By the way,
dangerous.
If we have a place like this in Chicago, you'll have to tell me to go.
Okay.
There.
What is the name of that place? Does anybody know? No? We'll find out. We got some stuff, we got some homework to do here.
But no, I think I'm pretty good at curating in general.
Okay.
Yeah, and I like your words. You said buffet. You said earlier when we started talking, you talked about a dossier. You talked about my
Dossier,
dossier.
yeah,
And I'm
dossier.
like, wow, it's very fancy. I like that
Yeah.
too. I'm gonna use
I
that.
try to say fancy words because it makes me look smart.
You just want to pretend you speak French.
I really do. What's another French thing I could say that would make me sound international?
Oh, come on. I have to come up with something on the
Well,
spot?
you don't.
That's
Maybe
too hard.
speaking of language and words and phrases, a little bit of a curveball here.
Oh, Jesus.
What is a word or phrase that we should stop using in the workplace?
What?
What comes to mind?
That's way too hard.
Are there any I'm thinking about like corporate jargon here. Any jargony terms that like in your world you hear it, you're like, oh my God, cringe.
Revolutionizing.
Revolutionizing, that's a good one. You hear that a lot?
You do. I probably say it too, but when I do say it, I'm like,
You don't believe
that's
it.
kind of like, sounds like marketing.
Yeah.
Speak.
I'm gonna revolutionize my desk and just get it organized.
But see, back to our, like, the back box technical buyer I was
Yeah.
talking about. I mean, I think if we put language like that out there, they're going to just
They're
laugh
gonna be
us
like,
out of the
"Okay,
room. They're
yeah."
going to be like, yeah, you're whatever.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of refreshing, maybe.
Yes.
To have to use
It's a good reminder.
more practical language, day to day, everyday speak. I like that.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know?
here's one. I mean, we have to use it, but here's actually, that's a pet peeve. Strategy.
Strategy. Yeah. You have to use that one.
I know, but it's sort of like, I feel like no one really knows what strategy means anymore.
Right.
Like people, we talk strategy, let's talk about strategy, and then it turns out to be tactics.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so there's a confusion between objective strategy and tactics.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big pet peeve.
Yeah.
They're not the same.
So when people come and they talk to you about strategy, maybe
Yeah.
do you ever kind of like, well, it's not really a strategy, that's a tact. Do you kind of correct them in those moments, or do you just like let it fly?
It depends. No, I have to pick my battles.
Yeah.
It
I think
depends.
that, like just be a little bit more thoughtful. This is a message to anybody who's watching this. Just be a little bit more thoughtful when you use the word strategy. That's all. I'm going to start doing that too, because I think I probably, I want people to think that I'm strategic. That's not a bad thing to be. So I probably use it too often.
Well, you look so smart already that I don't think you need to
Yeah.
use big words because it's pretty obvious.
Okay. Well, good. Thank you for saying that, by the way. They don't agree. They don't agree at all. Okay, last question here.
Yeah.
Do you have like a guilty pleasure song that's like that one song that you belt in the car or that you just like cry it out to?
I'm really into George Michael right now.
Yeah?
I'm
Okay.
probably, I know I'm dating myself, but whatever. The song that's been on replay in my house right now, this may be a little inappropriate on this podcast, I don't know, but hey, we used the F word earlier,
We did.
is Outside.
Okay.
I've always liked this song because it's a great dance song. But it's also the song that he wrote right after, he got caught in LA bathroom.
In the bathroom.
I do play it almost every weekend, loud in my house, and I dance in my living room.
I love it.
I do.
I love it. All right, George Michael Outside.
Yeah.
I mean, and also from just for fun, for marketing sake.
Yeah.
Talk about like really, like when you do have to do something to sort of shift a message or
Yeah.
a perception.
Yeah, there you go.
Embrace it. Get creative with it. I
Yeah.
mean, it's already out there. Like, what's the worst that could happen?
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, he was controlling the narrative in some ways.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Yeah, I love that.
That's a good
Well,
marketing
I love that
lesson.
example. Well, Isabelle, this has been revolutionizing. It's been strategic. But more than that, it's been delightful. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This was fun. I don't know how to say thank you in Latin, but I'm sure we can find it somewhere.
Ankyuthe is how one of the languages that I speak.
Efcharistopoli is in Greek. Does that
Okay.
work for you?
That works great.
Okay, there you go.
Go Fungal.